Illegal now, but normal in 1970s. What could this be? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel again. Thank you all so much for coming over. Got this video here from Recollection Road. I'll leave it in the description for you guys to check out more and even subscribe, man. Let me see. Did this stuff in the 70s bleed into the 80s? Do I remember any of this stuff? We ain't gonna waste no more time. Let's jump right into it.
The 1970s was a completely different time. We had less rules to follow, and that meant life was a bit more risky. Things that seemed completely normal have over time become outlawed. So let's
Let me look at that again. Look at the gas, y'all. Look at the gas. 48 cents, 49 cents. I remember when it was 98 cents, but my goodness, look at that.
And that meant life was a bit more risky. Things that seemed completely normal have over time become outlawed. So let's take a look back at all the things we did back in the 1970s that are now illegal.
I know it's probably gonna be kids in the car, no seatbelt.
Back in the day, kids used railroad tracks as an extension of the playground, walking along the rails, trying to keep their balance, or using the tracks as a shortcut to school was just part of growing up. Some would place pennies on the rails to see them get flattened, while others dared each other to cross a trestle before a train came through. You could always count on waving to the engineers and covering your ears as a train horn blasted. Today, that kind of fun is strictly off limits.
As it should be.
Railroad companies crack down hard on trespassing, and for a good reason. But for those who remember, it was a great adventure that added to your childhood.
Shout out to Stand By Me.
In the 1970s, a health scare over red dye number 2 led to the Mars Company pulling red M&Ms from production, despite the fact that M&Ms never actually used that dye to begin with. It didn't matter though. Public concern was high enough that red M&Ms disappeared over the decade. Meanwhile, people were still eating plenty of other foods that contained red dye number 2, like certain
Wait, are there no red? Did he say they brought them back? Red M. I'm trying to visualize myself pouring them in my hand.
drinks and certain cereals, before the FDA officially banned it in 1976. By the time red M&Ms made a comeback in 1987, the perception of red color in foods had shifted back to being safe. At least we hoped.
Okay.
Recollection Road is proud to partner with Legacy Box. If you've considered preserving your family's memories, then watch until the end of this video to see how Legacy Box can help you do it. Back in the 1970s, pajamas, furniture, and even baby clothes were loaded with flame retardants to prevent fires. At the time, it seemed like a great idea. Who wouldn't want some extra protection? But it turned out that these chemicals were being absorbed into our skin and were linked to serious health risks. It wasn't just clothing either. Old couches from that era still contain high levels of these now banned chemicals. Even though they meant well, the addition of flame retardants proved that sometimes safety measures may deliver an even worse outcome.
That's crazy, man.
Believe it or not, there was a time when a kid could walk into a store, hand the cashier a note from their parents, and buy a pack of cigarettes. No questions asked. Some kids didn't even need a note. The clerk just knew it was for mom or dad. It wasn't unusual for kids to grab a pack of smokes right alongside a candy bar and a bottle of Coke. Even cigarette vending machines were everywhere, in restaurants, bowling alleys, even gas stations. Today, that sounds completely crazy, but back then, it was just another errand to take care of for mom or dad.
That is wild, dude.
If you grew up in the 70s, you probably remember Clackers, the toy that was as fun as it was dangerous. These two acrylic balls on a string would make a loud clack as you swung them together, and the goal was to keep them going as fast and as long as possible. The problem was, if you weren't careful, they could smack you in the face, or even worse, shatter into sharp pieces. Schools eventually banned them, but that didn't stop kids from sneaking them around. Because let's face it, once Clackers were forbidden, kids wanted them even more. Cyclamates
He didn't say when they stopped, because I remember those. And you had like the click clack. I think they, click clack click clack. Yeah. When did they stop? If anybody know?
were a popular artificial sweetener found in diet sodas and low-calorie foods, but it took until 1970 for them to be banned. Scientists claimed they could cause cancer, though later studies questioned whether the risk was really as bad as originally thought. Before the ban, sodas like Tab used cyclamates to get that sweet taste, but after they were pulled, companies had to switch to saccharin. Strangely enough, many other countries never ban the substance and still allow them today.
Don't settle for some of the taste, some of the time.
In the 1970s, cigarette ads were everywhere, on TV, in magazines, and plastered across billboards. The Marlboro Man, Joe Camel, and catchy slogans like "Winston tastes good like a cigarette should" made smoking look like the ultimate cool factor. But by 1971, the US had banned cigarette ads on TV and radio, forcing tobacco companies to get creative with their marketing. They shifted to print ads, sports sponsorships, and even product placements in movies. Even though these ads are long gone from the airwaves, their influence on generations of smokers is still undeniable.
That's crazy.
Speaking
man.
of smoking,
Cigarettes.
if you flew on an airplane during the 70s, you'll remember that a smoke-filled cabin was just part of the experience. The armrest ashtrays were in full use, and even though there were designated smoking and non-smoking sections, the smoke didn't exactly stay put. Flight attendants dealt with clouds of smoke, and non-smoking passengers just put up with it.
I could not
The
do
smoking ban on airplanes started small, with it being phased out on domestic flights shorter than 2 hours in 1988, before it was completely prohibited in 2000. Now lighting up on a plane is unthinkable, but those old no smoking signs are a reminder of how different things used to be.
it.
Lead-based
Like at the lighters, and I just couldn't imagine. Just getting out of there smelling like. Well, times were different for sure.
paint was on just about every surface in the 70s, on walls, toys, and even cribs. It made colors more vibrant, and the paint lasted longer, and nobody thought twice about small children chewing on those lead-covered toys. When the serious health risks became undeniable, lead paint was finally banned in 1978, but many homes built before then still contained lead paint. Removing or mitigating it was expensive, and to this day, people still have to be cautious when renovating older homes. It's crazy to think that something so common turned out to be such a hazard. Lawn darts seemed like good, innocent backyard fun until you realized they could cause serious injuries if they hit someone. These heavy metal-tipped darts that were meant to pierce the ground caused several bad accidents, including a few fatalities. That's when parents started demanding they be banned. By the mid-1980s, they were pulled from store shelves, although many people held on to their original sets. The modern version of the game is much safer, but let's be honest, the thrill of playing lawn darts was really about dodging death. For kids growing up in the 70s, candy cigarettes were the ultimate way to feel grown up.
I remember
They came
those.
in packs that looked just like real cigarette brands, and some even had a powdered sugar coating that let you puff out fake smoke.
Yeah.
Parents didn't think much of it, even though they were basically encouraging smoking with fun and delicious candy. Eventually, concerns over promoting smoking led to bans in many places, and the packaging for candy cigarettes had to change drastically. They could no longer mimic real tobacco packs, and the word cigarettes was removed altogether. Back in the 70s, every gas station pumped leaded gasoline, and no one batted an eye. It helped cars run smoother and prevented engine knocking, but in reality, it was polluting the air and causing serious health issues. Studies linked lead exposure to developmental problems in kids, leading to a slow phase-out that started in the mid-70s. By the 1990s, leaded gas was mostly gone, and today it's hard to imagine we used to willingly pump a neurotoxin into the air. Just another example of how times have changed.
Definitely built different.
Believe it or not, some high schools actually had designated smoking areas for students in the 1970s. It wasn't just the kids either. Teachers were puffing away in the teacher's lounge, and sometimes even in the classroom. It was quite common to see students lining up along a smoking wall and lighting up in between classes. By the late 80s, the smoking areas started disappearing. But for many years, smoking at school was part of the daily routine. Today, the idea of a high school smoking section seems almost unbelievable. The original Easy Bake Oven was every little girl's dream toy because they could bake real tiny cakes. The only problem, the incandescent bulbs that did the cooking got seriously hot enough to cause burns or even melt the plastic on some models. After a while, safety concerns led to many redesigns, and modern versions shifted to a safer heating element. But for those who remember the original, there was something magical about making your own little cakes under the glow of a 100-watt bulb. It might not meet today's safety standards, but it sure made childhood sweeter.
You know, watching these videos, even though it says the 70s, and I was born in 1980, just watching all of this stuff, like, you just, times were different, for sure. I think the craziest thing is that, like, when you say people are built different, like, you can see it. Now, of course, everything evolves and people try to keep up with the technology and stuff like that. I guess you would never know. Because I'm just wondering, like, what if this stuff never changed? Like, what if it was still the smoking on the plane, the smoking in school? Like, because right now it's the technology, it's the iPads. Everybody got iPads, all the kids and stuff. You go to restaurants, you go everywhere, like that's what you see. Everybody's face is glued to the screen. You know, I just remember being a kid and just always going outside and playing. Always. You know, it's one of them crazy things, like if somebody knocked at your door back in the day, or if your phone rung, it was more like, oh, who the hell is this? Who is this knocking on my door? You know, nowadays people got their doors wide open. Come on in. Different times for sure, man. Out of all of this stuff that is illegal now, what would you guys want to bring back? Because I think they did a pretty good job of getting rid of that stuff. But is there anything that you guys miss? Comment below. Appreciate y'all coming over, man. Peace out.